Within the forested heart of Ontario, Canada, you'll find the sleepy town of Chapleau, a simple, unassuming community known for its scenic views, breathtaking wildlife, and frequent encounters with the bizarre. From raining frogs to spirit moose, Chapleau truly has some unique lore. Among these strange tales is the intriguing story of a being known as the Mistwalker. The first sighting of this creature dates back to the snowy morning of March 11th, 2004. Gilles Tremblay was woken up around 4 a.m. by his dog barking at something outside the window. After several failed attempts of getting his dog to shut up, he figured it best to glance out the window. Gilles was expecting to see a rabbit or maybe a moose. However, to his shock, he saw a naked man in his backyard. Naturally, Gilles was taken aback by this. A nude gentleman being on your property when it's well below zero will do that to you. However, he composed himself and went outside to confront the man, not before grabbing a golf club from his closet, mind you. He turned on the lights for his back patio, went out the side door, and slowly crept around the corner of his house. "You alright?" he called out. No response. When he finally turned the corner, he was greeted by what he initially mistook for a man. He described it as being skinny all over, with the exception of a large, bloated stomach. Its skin was a sickly yellow-gray color. Atop its head it had loose clumps of silver hair. The face, however, was what stuck out to him the most. He described it as skin crudely stretched over a human skull. Its eyes were small and black. It had no nose, and its mouth, if you can call it that, was a series of vertical slits in its skin, exposing the teeth behind it. He noticed the creature holding the remains of a small animal. It used its long, sharp fingers to rip off tiny strips of the animal and fit them into its mouth slits. Mortified, poor Gilles let out a scream. The figure glanced over at him, then began to casually stroll away back into the snowy woods behind Gilles' home, its kill still in hand. For the second sighting of this being, we must travel slightly northwest of Chapleau to Como Lake. It's here we'll find Jim Perry in his cabin preparing his morning coffee on September 8th, 2009. It was a particularly foggy start to the day, but that wasn't about to stop Jim from heading down to the dock to enjoy his brew as he did most mornings. Jim sat, watching the fog gently dance on the lake and listening to the birds who hadn't yet gone south for the winter. Unfortunately, this tranquility didn't last as Jim was hit by a nauseating odor. He described it as rotting vegetation, similar to how a swamp would smell. Now he knew that lakes tend to stink from time to time, so he initially brushed it off. Several minutes passed and the stench had grown stronger. Deciding he'd had enough, Jim stood up from his chair and headed back up the stairs to his cabin. It was at this point he realized the birds had stopped singing. Once he reached the top of the stairs, he began to hear splashing from the lake below him. He turned and saw it. An emaciated figure, crouched down with its head in the lake, drinking as an animal would. Its back was turned to him and he noticed its bony spine jutting out. Some of its vertebrae were protruding through its yellowish skin like fingers through wet tissue. He described it as being completely hairless. He noticed it had ears similar to a human, but very small. As Jim stood paralyzed with fear, the creature raised its head from the water. Jim saw water pouring out from the gashes in its face, where its mouth should be. It stood upright like a man, looking out at the lake. It was hunched, reaching between 5'8" and 5'10". Finally, it slowly wandered off into the woods without ever acknowledging Jim. Following Jim's encounter, there was an influx of sightings over the next several months. The first of these happened in December of the same year. A couple was driving past the Chapleau Ski Club during a blizzard when they claimed to see a tall, skinny, pale humanoid standing on the train tracks. They initially drove past, not trusting their own eyes. However, they eventually decided to turn back to get another look. When they returned, it was gone. Fast forward to January 14th, 2010, and we'll find our next supposed glimpse of the paranormal. Around lunchtime, Olivia Thompson is out shoveling her driveway during some heavy snowfall. Her husband was at work, so she wanted it clear for his truck when he returned home. After about half an hour of moving snow, she began to get winded and leaned on the snowbank she'd erected over the winter weeks. While watching the snowfall, she caught movement in her peripheral coming from the small cemetery across from her house. She saw a small, hairless creature that she described as a goblin digging in the snow in front of one of the headstones. Startled by this, she ran back inside and slammed the door behind her. She glanced out the kitchen window and saw nothing where the goblin had been. Later that evening, when Mr. Thompson returned home, Olivia regaled him with her tale, which spurred some excitement in him. He insisted they go over to the graveyard to check for tracks. It took some convincing, but eventually Mrs. Thompson agreed. They both crossed the street, flashlight in hand, and made their way to the grave where she had seen her mysterious visitor. After looking for roughly 15 minutes, they found no evidence of anyone or anything being there that day. In mid-March, Patrick Sutherland was doing his early commute to work on a misty morning. As he approached the overpass on Lisgar and Monk Street, he saw a scrawny humanoid with pale gray skin sheltering in the small den under the bridge. Having heard some of the stories brewing, he didn't stop to investigate. This next one is vague, passed down like a game of telephone, and the original caller remains a mystery. Somewhere in Chapleau, on a dark and stormy night, someone saw a being with gashes for a mouth peering through their window. That's all there is to this one. I left out a few smaller sightings, stray glimpses here and there that weren't particularly interesting. But as you can see from these reports, the features of this phenomenon are quite varied. The most prominent similarities include a mouth made of slits in its waxy skin, and a tendency to only appear in low visibility weather. Due to this apparent shyness, the people of the town dubbed it the Mistwalker. Speculation about what this creature might be has spawned a few popular theories. Due to Chapleau's close proximity to a Cree reserve, some believe it's a spirit from their mythology, a Wendigo or something similar. Meanwhile, those who seek a less supernatural explanation claim the creature is some kind of hairless ape that somehow made its way into the Canadian wilderness. These people chalk up the more fantastical features in the witness accounts to vivid imaginations and impaired vision. And finally, the people who simply think it's the mass hysteria of bored residents in a small town. Whatever the truth may be, the people in this sheltered little community swear they saw something in the mist of their home. Sightings dropped off significantly after 2010. The odd one popped up here and there, but it was never as widespread as it once was. That being said, I'll leave you with one final encounter from the summer of 2023, shared by a young adult who wishes to remain anonymous. I'll read this account verbatim. This happened back in June of 2023. I don't remember what day. Those really bad wildfires were going on, so there was smoke everywhere. I had just gotten into a fight with my mom, so I decided I'd rather walk in the smoke than stay at home. Dumb, but I was like 16. I went on this walking trail near my home, like a 10-minute walk away. No one else was on it, probably because it was so smoky. I actually had a cough for like 2 weeks after this. I was going along and heard rustling in the bushes to my right. I looked and saw this big, tall, skinny thing like 5 feet away from me reaching out with one arm. It looked like the rake, but standing up straight and with these slashes for a mouth. It made this gurgling sound and I just ran. Got home, locked my bedroom door, and cried. I only found out about the Mistwalker stories recently, about a year after I saw it. I don't walk those trails anymore. So, that's the story of Canada's small-town cryptid. Make what you will of it. But the next time you're out, and the fog rolls in, stay observant. You may not be alone.
I like a bit of mist in the morning.
Turn back, traveler. Terror waits within this mist.
The fog is coming?
When the fog rolls in.
The fog sounds so ominous. But that's because it just is. The fog is coming. The fog is coming. The fog is coming.
Fog as thick as peanut butter.
Fog. It just sort of rolled in on us, sir.